often emphasizes the urgency of this moment, reminding us that the rapture will separate the saved from the lost, marking the transition from grace to judgment. Whether it is tied to the Feast of Trumpets, a literal trumpet blast, or a symbol of finality, the last trump serves as a divine signal, urging us to be ready for the Lord's return.
Many people today are saying some of the same things that Trump has done and is doing are some of the same things that Cyrus did for the nation of Israel. And so many are saying that Trump is a type of Cyrus, or better said, Cyrus is a type of Trump. So when you look at Donald Trump, could he be the modern Cyrus?
Pastor Robert Breaker draws a fascinating parallel between the ancient King Cyrus of Persia and Donald Trump, a modern political leader. This comparison raises the question, could Donald Trump be a contemporary figure used by God to fulfill his prophetic purposes, particularly concerning Israel?
Rebuild it and go and build your temple. So let's go to Isaiah 45 and verse 1. Thus saith the Lord to his anointed, to Cyrus, whose right hand I have holden, to subdue nations before him, and I will loose the loins of kings, to open before him the two leavened.
Cyrus is one of the most extraordinary figures in biblical prophecy. God called him his anointed, Isaiah 45:1, and used him to allow the Jewish people to return to Jerusalem and rebuild their temple, as foretold in Isaiah 44:28. Remarkably, this prophecy was given 150 years before Cyrus was even born, demonstrating God's sovereignty over history. Cyrus, a pagan king, may not have personally known the God of Israel, but he fulfilled God's will. He made a proclamation for the Jews to rebuild their city and temple, Ezra 1:1-4, impacting both the political and religious landscape of his time.
So the Hebrew Bible ends with, if you're a Jew, go to Jerusalem, go to Israel, go back to that nation. And this guy, Cyrus, was used of God and called of God and mentioned by God 150 years before he was even born. That's why the Bible is a book of prophecy.
Many believe that Donald Trump mirrors Cyrus in several ways. Recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. In 2017, Trump made the bold decision to officially recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, fulfilling a long-standing hope for the Jewish people. This act echoed Cyrus's decree regarding Jerusalem. Relocation of the U.S. Embassy. In 2018, Trump oversaw the relocation of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, solidifying this recognition. This aligns with Cyrus's proclamation to rebuild Jerusalem and the Temple. Support for Israel. Trump's administration was marked by strong support for Israel, reminiscent of Cyrus's role as a political figure who aided the Jewish nation.
There's a coin that is put out in Israel, which they have Cyrus and Trump side by side. And the people in Israel look at Trump and say, hey, he did for us what King Cyrus did for us. So they look at him as a figure sent by God to them, to help them.
Now, in Israel, some have even minted a coin bearing the images of Cyrus and Trump side by side. This coin highlights the perceived similarities between the two leaders as figures chosen to aid Israel in critical moments of history.
You can prophesy by name people that are going to show up before they even show up. That's pretty fascinating to me. It is quite interesting here. It says to build an house in Jerusalem. So that's what Cyrus did. Now, could Donald Trump be mentioned in the Bible? Well, if so, it was written about 2,000 years ago. So
Pastor Breaker often emphasizes that God can use anyone, righteous or unrighteous, to fulfill his purposes. Proverbs 21:1 states, "The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord as the rivers of water. He turneth it whithersoever he will." Just as Cyrus was used to advance God's plan for Israel, Trump's actions may hold prophetic significance. Whether Donald Trump is a modern Cyrus or simply a political leader fulfilling a temporary role, the parallels are undeniable. As believers, this should remind us of God's ultimate control over history and his unshakable promises to Israel.
In 2 months. Now, 42 months would be 3.5 years. If you take 7 and divide it into half, you get 3.5 and 3.5. or you get 42 months and 42 months, or you get 1,260 days, 1,260 days. And
Pastor Robert Breaker consistently emphasizes that we are living in the last days and that the rapture is imminent. The signs of the times are all around us, pointing to the soon return of Jesus Christ to take his church out of this world before the tribulation begins.
another passage about the rapture. And again, it's a mystery. Verse 51. 1 Corinthians 15:51. Behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. Isn't that interesting? The last trump.